be radicalism within this space, right? And so you're looking at it from a lens of our values, our principles, our culture, which means very few people make the cut. And then on top of that, even if they go and the organization has sponsored, it's still a very paternalistic relationship, because I have to make sure you come back. So it's almost babysitting.
I'm your prefect.
Right? While you're there, I'm your prefect, until we get on the flight back in to the country, even through transit, everything else, you're essentially babysitting this person. So it's a very paternalistic, yes, a very paternalistic relationship. Check in. Are you on the flight? I'm looking at you on the flight. It's just so, we've transited through safely.
It's like,
opening
her eyes super wide.
Yeah.
Okay, Wanja, you also had a good point about CSW making itself known.
Yeah, I think actually why I'm saying this is because probably this calls also for because I'm quite sure that CSW is sort of anchored to UN Women. I'm seeing these conversations as a point for them to self-reflect and self-introspect. And in the past, the question should be, who are the critical voices that are missing in the room? And they have had examples over and over of missing critical voices and what that happens. It is the same global platform that made
Hi, Nairobi.
I just congratulated them. You jinxed it.
No, this is no visa, no. That was free air creation. Visa illa, avu barake now ho gaye. Adike networking problem.
Visa is a difficulty.
Visa
ಏನು ಗೊತ್ತಾ, you at the moment you register and from an accredited organization, UN
don't know what is accredited.
UN in the letter ಕಳಿಸ್ತಾರೆ invitation. That if you have, you can get through immigration.
Very easy.
Immigration isn't, but maybe for them, if the organization is also.
But they are applying for visa. Fund, the portal is crashing. Who is able to get
digital gender? So there's also a gender issue to it, that men are likely to access digital platforms than women. So the issues are quite many to unpack.
More than just devices, yeah. Okay, I'm glad you're back with us, Bangalore. We had a bit of a technical glitch. You can hear us?
Yes. Now we can hear.
Okay. Can we get some reflections from how your break went? Maybe two of you can share with us. There's a lady I haven't heard from in the corner in the purple. We haven't heard from you at all.
We were just talking about how these visa issues, of course, in addition to everything that has already been shared about our identity and financials and all of that, there are also logistical issues. For example, the visa appointments in India currently to the US are taking approximately 600 to 700 days, if I'm not wrong.
700, that's 2 years.
Yeah, nowadays, in the last couple of months, it's been showing that our appointment is only available 700 days from now, which is 2 years, like you rightly identified, which means there are also logistical issues when it comes to people who need these visas to be able to enter countries to begin with. Of course, it changes quite a bit if you have a UN invitation letter and things, but even to get access to that letter is a whole different story by itself. You need to have a certain identity to be able to get that. That was just something we were discussing a while back.
Okay. Is there something else that came up in the break, or should I move on? Okay, so these global spaces, they're regular events. You know, as you pointed out, a 700-day wait for a visa meeting, not even picking up your visa, you know, is quite restrictive. What would make these spaces more accessible to all of us, not just the physical accessibility? What about costs, connection? Letter is a difficult one to get. Are there things that can be done to make these spaces more accessible to us?
I think technology can play a good role in that. If UN starts having conferences online, you know, then more people can from all over the world can participate from where they are.
Okay. Okay.
But at least it will increase marginally the number of people who can take part.
Okay. Okay. Thank you for that. Thank you. There's something, Wanja, you were saying about that accessibility, because I did think the same thing. Can it be streamed? You had a good point about female accessibility to,
like when we are talking about issue, you know, I think the more I get into these spaces, the more I get time to reflect and talk about privilege. And one of the privileges that we have is actually access to internet, access to digital devices like laptops and smartphones. So where else, yes, the world is going global, fair enough, and we ought to catch up. We also need to appreciate that there are people who are, and especially there's a gender perspective to it. How literate are women in technology? And actually the statistics are there. So even as we talk about technology, it's important for us to have that appreciation so that then we can say, if that is a challenge, how can we capture those voices?
Okay.
But yes, there's a digital gender gap, gender divide, yeah.
Right.
I have a different opinion. One, I think also, like, if we talk from a point of privilege, not all also, let's say, women or activists or feminists also have access to smartphone or internet. There are activists and communities where even having electricity now in 2023, it's also still a challenge. So if we cluster women that they can be able to access technology at the same time, because it's moving for a certain capitalistic system, I think also we're excluding some people in some of these spaces. And a good example is also like where I differ when institutions are saying, even I saw it during Gender Equality Forum, where they are saying people to go online and even accessing those spaces. If someone does not accept you to enter to that link, they cut you because of your politics. And it was working against most of us who are who are supporting abortion rights or supporting LGBTQ, because if you come to that space and you're bringing this agenda that for them they don't want to talk about, your voice is never heard. So I think we need to rethink on how, when we are saying, because it's UN women, and with no beef with UN women, but we know UN women does not support even feminist politics. They only say it's to donors when they want to get resources. The space even here in Nairobi for UN women it's somehow safeguarded.
Okay.
And you can't even access. It's not accessible to feminist politics.
Right.
It's only accessible to certain sexy women's right advocacy work that looks proper.
We actually have a point to that as well.
Yes, there.
Okay.
Just we want to add.
Kieran, allow me, because we haven't heard for a while from Fatma, to let her speak, and then we'll come to you.
Okay. Absolutely. Okay.
Just to add on what Wanja was saying, feeling that some voices being left out. Imagine going through all the challenges, the barriers of the visa, airport, and everything else, the financial challenges, and then you're finally getting yourself to the CSW place, and then you feel that your voice is not heard. As women with disabilities, most of the times we feel that our voices have been muffled into the mainstream women's movement, and we have felt a lot of time that our voices have not been heard, our issues have never been prioritized. And yes, we are women, but we have other challenges which comes with disabilities, and these are the things that sometimes you get so frustrated because you've gone all the way there, your voice have not been heard, and you've come back and you still feel like you went there, but you went there to do nothing.
You didn't do anything.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Kiran, go ahead. You had a comment?
Yes, intersectionality, accessibility ತುಂಬಾ ಮುಖ್ಯ. ಯಾಕಂದ್ರೆ intersectional accessibility ಒಳಗಡೆ ಮುಖ್ಯವಾಗಿ ನೇಮ್ಸ್. ಸೊ ನೇಮ್ಸ್ ಬರುವಾಗ ಜೆಂಡರ್ ಬರುವಾಗ ಇಲ್ಲಾಂದ್ರೆ ಸೆಕ್ಸ್ ಅಂತ ಬರುವಾಗ ಸೊ ಇಂಟರ್ಸೆಕ್ಷನಾಲಿಟಿ ಅವ್ರದ್ದು ಒಂದು ಡಿಸಬಿಲಿಟಿ LGBTQI ಅಂತ ನೋಡುವಾಗ ಸ್ತ್ರೀವಾದ ಇಶ್ಯೂ ಬರುವಾಗ ಇಸ್ ಅ ಫೀಮೇಲ್ ಡೈರೆಕ್ಟ್ ಆಗಿರುತ್ತೆ, ಬಟ್ ಸೆಕ್ಸ್ ವರ್ಕರ್ ಅಂತ ಎಲ್ಲಿ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ತೋರ್ಸಂಗಿಲ್ಲ. ಸೊ ಸೆಕ್ಸ್ ವರ್ಕರ್ ಅನ್ನೋದು ಪದ ನಾವ್ ಹೇಳ್ಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ಹೇಳ್ಬೋದು, ಅವ್ರಿಷ್ಟ, ಅವ್ರ ಚಾಯ್ಸ್ ಅದು. ಬಟ್ ಡಿಸಬಿಲಿಟಿ ಅಂಡ್ LGBTQI ಪರ್ಸನ್ಗೆ ಸ್ಪೆಷಲ್ ಆಗಿ ಸಮಸ್ಯೆ ಆಗುವುದು ಇಲ್ಲೇ. ವೀಸಾ ಜಾಗ ಸಿಕ್ಕುವಾಗ ಇಲ್ಲ ಟ್ರಾವೆಲ್ ಮಾಡುವಾಗ ತುಂಬಾ ತೊಂದರೆಗಳನ್ನು ಅನುಭವಿಸ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ. ಸೊ ಸ್ಪೆಷಲ್ ಆಗಿ ಟ್ರಾನ್ಸ್ ಆಗಿ ಅಂಡ್ ಡಿಸಬಿಲಿಟಿ ಆಗಿ ಈ ಇಂಟರ್ಸೆಕ್ಷನಾಲಿಟಿ ಇಶ್ಯೂ ಬರುವಾಗ ಕ್ಲಾಸ್ ತುಂಬಾ ಕಡೆ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆ, ತುಂಬಾ ಕಡೆನೂ ಫೇಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದೀವಿ. ಸೊ ಇದು ನಾವು ಹೇಗೆ ಇದನ್ನ ಚಾಲೆಂಜ್ ಆಗಿ ತಗೊಳ್ತೀವಿ ಅಂಡ್ ಇದನ್ನ ಟ್ರಾವೆಲ್ ಮಾಡಕ್ಕೆ ಒಂದ್ ಕಡೆ ನಮ್ಮ ಶಕ್ತಿ ಇದೆ ಅಂಡ್ ತುಂಬಾ ಜನ ಹೋರಾಟಗಾರರು, ತುಂಬಾ ಜನ ಅಂಗವಿಕಲರ ಡಿಸಬಿಲಿಟಿ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಕೆಲಸ ಮಾಡೋರು ಇವತ್ತು ಮೂಲೆ ಗುಂಪುವಾಗಿ ವಿಲೇಜ್ ರೂರಲ್ ಕೆಳಗಡೆನೆ ಇದಾರೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಎಲ್ಲೋ ಒಂದ್ ಕಾರಣ ಇದೆ. ಸೊ ನಮಗೆ ನಮ್ಮ ದೇಶದ ಇತಿಹಾಸ ಮತ್ತು ಬೇರೆ ದೇಶದ ಇತಿಹಾಸಗಳ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಈ ತರ ಇರುತ್ತಾ ಅನ್ನೋದು ತುಂಬಾ ಜನಕ್ಕೆ ಗೊತ್ತಿರಲ್ಲ. ಈ ಸಮಸ್ಯೆನ ಐಡೆಂಟಿಫೈ ಮಾಡೋಬೇಕಾಗಿರೋದು ತುಂಬಾ ಮುಖ್ಯ ಆಗಿರುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ಒಂದು ಆಸ್ ವೆ ಕಿರಣ್, ದಲಿತ್, ಡಿಸಬಿಲಿಟಿ, ಟ್ರಾನ್ಸ್, ಸೊ ಮೈಗ್ರೇಷನ್ ಈ ತರ ಬರುವಾಗ ಒಂದು ಪಾಸ್ಪೋರ್ಟ್ ತಗೋಬೇಕಂದ್ರೆ ನಮ್ಗೆ ಏನೇನ್ ಸಮಸ್ಯೆ ಆಗತ್ತೆ, ಪಾಸ್ಪೋರ್ಟ್ ಜೊತೆ ವಿಸಾನು ಬೇಕಂದ್ರೆ ಏನೇನ್ ಸಮಸ್ಯೆ ಆಗತ್ತೆ, ಸೊ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಕಾಸ್ಟ್ ಬರುತ್ತಾ, ಜೆಂಡರ್ ಬರುತ್ತಾ, ಸೊ ಏನ್ ಬರುತ್ತಾ ಅನ್ನೋದು ತುಂಬಾ ಸ್ಪೆಷಲ್ ಆಗಿ ಇದನ್ನ ನಾವು ಕ್ಲಾರಿಟಿ ತಗೋಬೇಕು. ಯಾಕಂದ್ರೆ ನಾನ್ ಟ್ರಾವೆಲ್ ಮಾಡಕ್ ರೆಡಿ ಇದೀವಿ, ಬಟ್ ನನ್ನ ಬ್ಯಾಕ್ ಗ್ರೌಂಡ್ ಗೆ ವಿಸಾ ಕೊಡಕ್ಕೆ ತುಂಬಾ ಹಿಂದಿರುತ್ತದೆ. ಅದು ಮುಂದೆ ತಗೊಂಡ್ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಯಾವುದು ರೆಸ್ಪಾನ್ಸಿಬಿಲಿಟಿ ಹೇಗೆ ತಗೊಂಡು ಹೋಗ್ಬೋದು. ಸೊ ಇದು ನನ್ನ ಒಂದು ಕ್ವಶನ್ ತರನೇ ಇದೆ. ಸೊ ನಾಟ್ ಎ ಕಾಮೆಂಟ್ ಹಾಗೆ ಅಂತಲ್ಲ, ಒಂದು ಹಾಗೇನೆ ಇದೆ ಅದು. ಸೊ ನನ್ನ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪೀರಿಯನ್ಸ್ ಪ್ರಕಾರ UNCRPD ಅವರು ನನ್ಗೆ ವೀಸಾ ಕಳಿಸಿದ್ರು ರೀಸೆಂಟ್ಲಿ 2019 ಅಲ್ಲಿ ನಾನ್ ಟ್ರಾವೆಲ್ ಮಾಡುವಾಗ. ಇನ್ ಶ್ರೀಲಂಕಾ ಅವರು ಕೂಡ ನನ್ಗೆ ಲೆಟರ್ ಕಳಿಸಿದ್ರು. ಆಗ ನಾನ್ ಟ್ರಾವೆಲ್ ಮಾಡಕ್ಕೆ ಈಸಿ ಆಯ್ತು. ಬಟ್ ನೆಟ್ವರ್ಕಿಂಗ್ ಎಲ್ಲಿ ಯಾರು ಬಿಲ್ಡ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದಾರೆ, ನೆಟ್ವರ್ಕಿಂಗ್ ನಾವು ಎಲ್ಲಿ ಯಾವ ನೆಟ್ವರ್ಕಿಂಗ್ ದಿಂದ ಇವತ್ತು ಮುಂದೆ ಹೋಗ್ತಾ ಇದೀವಿ. ಸೊ ಔಟ್ ಆಫ್ ಕಂಟ್ರಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಈ ನೆಟ್ವರ್ಕಿಂಗ್ ಯಾವ ಕೆಲಸ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದಾರೆ. ಸೊ ಇವಾಗಾದ್ರೂ ನಮ್ಗೆ ಬೇಸಿಕ್ ಆಗಿ ಗೊತ್ತಿರೋ ವಿಚಾರಗಳನ್ನೇ ಗೊತ್ತಿದೆ. ಸೊ ಒಂದು ಲ್ಯಾಂಗ್ವೇಜ್ ಪ್ರಾಬ್ಲಮ್ ಇರುತ್ತೆ, ಅಮೌಂಟ್ ಪ್ರಾಬ್ಲಮ್ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ಇದೆಲ್ಲಾನು ಮೈಂಡ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಇಟ್ಕೋಬೇಕು ಅನ್ನೋದು ನಂದು ಒಂದು ಅನಿಸಿಕೆ.
Kiran says, being disabled, being
I think the interpretation is
Could you hear
Yes.
What do you want to answer? Very good, very good. She's not even.
Okay. Thank you, Kiran. Thank you. I have a question about the Dalit movement and what are the barriers that you face? And can you tell us a bit more about it? Because it doesn't actually exist in our context. We have discrimination based on like your tribe, your ethnicity, what language you speak, and your culture and customs. But we don't have discrimination based on you were born in this caste. And therefore certain things are just not accessible to you. Could someone shed light on that?
ಒಂದು ಕಡೆ ಮೈಗ್ರೇಷನ್ ಭಾರತ ದೇಶದಲ್ಲಿ ತೆಲಂಗಾಣದಲ್ಲಿ SC ಕಾಸ್ಟ್ ಲಂಬಾಣಿಸ್ ಬಂದು ಇಲ್ಲಿ SC ಆಗ್ತಾರೆ. ಸೊ ಮೈಗ್ರೇಷನ್ ಆಗುವಾಗ ಕಾಸ್ಟ್ ಗಳು ಬದಲಾವಣೆಗಳು ತುಂಬಾ ಬರುತ್ತಾ ಇರ್ತವೆ. ಸೊ ಒಂದು ಇತಿಹಾಸ ಏನಂದ್ರೆ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಏನಂದ್ರೆ ಕಾಸ್ಟ್ ಅನ್ನೋದು ಯಾರು ಕೊಟ್ಟಿರೋದು ನಮ್ಗೆ ಬೈ ಬರ್ತ್, ಅದೇ ನಮ್ ಜೊತೆ ಬಂದಿರೋದು. ಹುಟ್ಟುವಾಗನೇ ನಾವು ಹುಟ್ಟಕ್ ಮುಂಚೆನೆ ದೇಶದ ಪ್ರಜಾ ಕೊಟ್ಬಿಟ್ಟಿರೋದು, ನೀನು ಇಂಥ ಜಾತಿ ಅಂತ ಕೊಟ್ಬಿಟ್ಟಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಸೊ ಬರುವಾಗ ಕ್ಯಾರಿ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡು ಬರುವಾಗ ನಾನು ನನ್ನ ಸ್ಟೇಟ್ ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಸ್ಟೇಟ್, ಕಂಟ್ರಿ ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಕಂಟ್ರಿ ಹೋಗುವಾಗ ನನ್ನ ಕಾಸ್ಟಿನ ನಾನು ಪ್ರೊಡಕ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡಕ್ಕೆ ಜಾಗ ಇಲ್ಲ. ಯಾಕಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ನಮ್ಮ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ ನನ್ ಕ್ರೈಸಿಸ್ ನೋಡುವಾಗ, ಫಾರ್ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ ಆಂಧ್ರ ಪ್ರದೇಶ್ ಟು ತೆಲಂಗಾಣ ಟು ಕರ್ನಾಟಕ, ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಶೆಡ್ಯೂಲ್ ಕಾಸ್ಟ್, ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಶೆಡ್ಯೂಲ್ ಶೆಡ್ಯೂಲ್ ಕಾಸ್ಟ್ ಕೊಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ರೆ, ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಶೆಡ್ಯೂಲ್ ಆದಿವಾಸಿ ಅಂತ ಕೊಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ. ಬಟ್ SC/ST ಗೆ ತುಂಬಾ ವ್ಯತ್ಯಾಸ ಇದೆ. ಸೊ ಎನಿ ಎಲೆಕ್ಷನ್ ಫ್ಯೂಚರ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಎಲೆಕ್ಷನ್ ನಿಂತ್ಕೋರ್ಗೆ ಇದೊಂದು ದೊಡ್ಡ ಚಾಲೆಂಜ್ ಆಗಿ ಆಗಿರುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ಕಾಸ್ಟ್ ಇಂಟರ್ಸೆಕ್ಷನಾಲಿಟಿಗೆ ತುಂಬಾ ಮೈಗ್ರೇಷನ್ ಆಗೋ ಪೀಪಲ್ಗೆ ಕಲ್ಸಕ್ ಹೋಗಿರ್ತಾರೆ, ಬೇರೆ ಕಂಟ್ರಿಗೆ ಹೋಗಿರ್ತಾರೆ. ಸೊ ಇದನ್ನ ತುಂಬಾ ಚಿಕ್ಕ ವಿಷಯನೇ ಇರ್ಬೋದು, ಬಟ್ ಅವರು ನೋಡುವಾಗ ಪ್ರತಿಯೊಂದು ಅಬ್ಸರ್ವೇಷನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ. ಸೊ ಇದಕ್ಕೆ ಕನೆಕ್ಟೆಡ್ ಹೇಗೆ ಮಾರೋದು ಅನ್ನೋದು ಕೂಡ ಒಂದು ಚಾಲೆಂಜ್ ಆಗಿದೆ. ನಾನು ಕಾಸ್ಟ್ ಇನ್ಕಮ್ ತಗೊಳಕ್ಕೆ ಇಸ್ ಅ ಕಮ್ ಬ್ಯಾಕ್ ಇನ್ ಮದರ್ ಟಂಗ್ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ಒಂದು ಲ್ಯಾಂಗ್ವೇಜ್ ಮದರ್ ಟಂಗ್ ಬಂದಿರುತ್ತೆ. ಕಾಸ್ಟ್ ಇನ್ ಬದಲಾವಣೆ ಮಾಡ್ತೀಯಾ, ಬಟ್ ಅವ್ರ ಭಾಷೆ ಹೇಗೆ ಬದಲಾವಣೆ ಮಾಡ್ತೀರಾ?
Okay, some of that we've lost the translator.
Do you want to? No, there is 2 points that Kiran makes. One is that yes, scheduled caste is something. We have schedules of castes. So certain castes are scheduled as, backward classes, backward castes, the lowest caste. I mean, there's a hierarchy of castes. So those who are at the bottom, and from state to state, India is a huge country with different states. So from state to state, it differs on which category you come under. So that's a huge problem when you do go to another state. But the fact is, Dalit is a problem that persists throughout the country. It is so much, we have internalized it so much that today, especially in today, we have a huge problem about Dalits getting access to, even to, housing,
Yes.
or education, or health.
Wow.
Everywhere, the moment.
So
you
if
say
you're
you're a Dalit,
Can I understand? Let me just ask to understand. If you are Dalit, then you cannot access a certain level of education.
No, the problem is you can't. On paper, there is a reservation for Dalits.
Yes.
But in practicality, the people who are the service providers in every sector make a difference between the kind of service they give to others and to Dalits. That's a problem. And they are really marginalized everywhere in everyday life. They may be on paper, you may have a reservation, you may have all the rights, but when it comes to practicality, caste plays it's a huge problem.
Today basing also on it. So Chikballapuralli base ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದೀನಿ. Is the mother. So ತುಂಬಾ ಕಷ್ಟ ಇದೆ.
If you are a Dalit, you are really, everybody starts from 0.0. Dalits start from much below 0 because they've already been marginalized so much. So
That is
problem.
terrible. And your caste is for life. You can't change it.
Yes.
Yeah, it's by birth. It's by birth.
I would
Before birth, automatically.
So,
the womb which you are born in counts.
yeah, that's what.
So if you are a Dalit woman, even if you don't have a child with a Dalit man, your child is a Dalit baby. Is that how it works?
So even the concept of intercaste marriages is not something that has a lot of societal approval in India. So the scenario that you're talking about, where a Dalit person marries a non-Dalit person, even though legally there is no bar against it.
Yes.
Society.
Actually, the government had given entitlement for
Reservation though as well. I think societally is not something that is gotten a lot of approval or something that is seen with a lot of encouragement in the society. So the idea that you put forward about there being a marriage between a Dalit person and a non-Dalit person, that's actually quite difficult from a societal standpoint to actually become a reality. Intercaste couples actually face quite a lot of discrimination and harassment as a result of that union.
People love jihad.
So if
Love jihad, which is
But
also
let me
which is also interreligious.
if I don't tell you that I am Dalit, how will you know?
I think so.
Because you know some forms of discrimination you can't escape. Like if you're black, you're black. You know, if you're transgender, you're transgender. If you are, you know what I mean? If you're brown, you're brown. But how will one person know another is Dalit?
So usually names are a very strong indicator,
Yes.
but
So
And even your location.
ಭಾರತ ದೇಶದಲ್ಲಿ ಬಂದು ಕಾಸ್ಟ್ ಬಂದು ಅವ್ರದ್ದು ನೇಮ್ ಜೊತೆ ಸೊ ರೆಡ್ಡಿಸ್ ಅಂತ ಯಾದವ್ಸ್ ಅಂತ ನಾಯಕ್ಸ್ ಅಂತ ಸೊ ಅಪ್ಪರ್ ಕಾಸ್ಟ್ ಓವರ್ ಆಗಿ ತೋರಿಸ್ಕೊಳ್ಳ ನಾನು ಗೌಡ ನಾನು ರೆಡ್ಡಿ ಅಂತ ಏನ್ ತೋರಿಸ್ಕೊಳ್ಳೋದು ಅವಾಗ ಗೊತ್ತಾಗತ್ತೆ ಅಪ್ಪರ್ ಕಾಸ್ಟ್. who these come back in ನಾಯಕ್ಸ್ ಅಂತ ಆಗ್ತಾರೋ ಅವರೆಲ್ಲ ದಲಿತ್ ಕಮ್ಯುನಿಟಿ ಕೆಳಗಡೆ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಜನ ಆಗ್ತಾರ, ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಜನ ಭಯಕ್ಕೆ ಅದು ತೋರ್ಸಕ್ಕೆ ಆಗಲ್ಲ. ಸೊ ಫಾರ್ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ ಕಿರಣ್ ನಾಯಕ್ ಆಲ್ಸೋ ಕೂಡ ನಾಯಕ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳುವಾಗ ತಕ್ಷಣವೇ ಬರೋದು ಇನ್ ಇವರು ದಲಿತ್ ಇಲ್ಲ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ಇವರು ಶೆಡ್ಯೂಲ್ ಕಾಸ್ಟ್ ಶೆಡ್ಯೂಲ್ ಟ್ರೈಬಲ್ ಕೆಳಗಡೆ ಬರುತ್ತಾ ಅಂತ ಆಟೋಮೆಟಿಕ್ ಆಗಿ ಇಂಡಿಯಾದಲ್ಲಿ ಗೊತ್ತಾಗೋದು ಅದೊಂದು ಇದು. ಸೊ ಭಾರತ ದೇಶದಲ್ಲಿ ಅಂತಾನೆ ಅಲ್ಲ, ತುಂಬಾ ಕಡೆ ಅವ್ರು ಚಾಯ್ಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಳ್ತಾರೆ. ಬ್ರಾಹ್ಮಣ್ಸ್ಗೆ ತುಂಬಾ ಡಿಫ್ರೆಂಟ್ ಆಗಿ ನೇಮ್ಸ್ ಇರುತ್ತೆ, ಸೊ ಕ್ರಿಶ್ಚಿಯನ್ಗೆ ಡಿಫ್ರೆಂಟ್ ಆಗಿ ನೇಮ್ ಇರುತ್ತೆ, ಸೊ ಮುಸ್ಲಿಮ್ಸ್ಗೆ ಡಿಫ್ರೆಂಟ್ ಆಗಿ ನೇಮ್ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಕಾಸ್ಟ್ ಜೊತೆನೂ ರಿಲಿಜನ್ಸ್ ಗೊತ್ತಾಗ್ಬಿಡುತ್ತೆ.
Okay. Thanks a lot, Kiran, for breaking that down. Thank you. Okay, so very quickly, before we get into our dreaming session, just how relevant are these UN global spaces like CSW in your line of work? Like, will going to CSW actually make a big difference in your line of work? Will it make you more effective? Will it impact your activism in a positive way? Why is it so important that we go to CSW in the first place, or that we participate? I think I'll bring it back to Nairobi and then we'll come back to you. Mwikali, go on. Madam, abolish CSW.
If you ask me, like, I won't say it's not important based on discussion, but from where I see it is that we don't need these bureaucratic spaces that we know also our voice will never be heard. I feel it's a space for just dangling carrots for rights. Because if I ask accountability, who is CSW accountable to? And if it's organized by the UN, they say they work for our governments because our governments is their members, but not us citizens. And that's why you don't see most of us, the way they design it, even CSO having access, it's ministers going there. So for me, I feel, and I know this one will not agree, many people will not agree with me, there's no need for that kind of space. We can still do our CSW in our own local community. Our CSW is every day when we're interacting with our even leaders who we are supposed to hold them to account. So why take taxpayers' money to go and waste in CSW? And women are dying here, and girls need also, there's need for education. Like there's so many things that are needed. Secondly, I can say it's important as long as I'll go and see my comrade there. If it gives me an opportunity for every year to go to see my comrades and then we interact and exchange idea for self-care, but unfortunately we don't have money like them. You can say you're going for shopping. I've never been there, but for me, I'm a feminist who don't believe we need those spaces so much. We only need our spaces in our local grassroots organizations. And also don't waste a lot of money there. Why waste a lot of money there?
Let me ask Noni, before we come to Fatma who actually went, did you see it make a difference for the women who did get to go? The ones you did get visas for?
So I think there's two ways of looking at it. One is what Rachel has said, which is about that convening, is about convening with people who are powering through similar struggles, but also different struggles, and learning from each other, engaging with each other, exchanging ideas. I think it's also a space that has a lot of influence from a policy perspective, because you have duty bearers there, you have decision makers there. You're able to put pressure on your governments in a safer environment.
As a man, you might not have been able to
correct. Yes, that you may not have been able to meet, and also it's safer, and they're hesitant to say target you, because if you've been in this space of activism and running in the streets, you essentially don't have any cover, right? So this gives you some cover and some influence.
Someone knows your name and they'll ask what happened to Mwikali.
They'll be like, if Mwikali is here, that means Mwikali is influential enough for her not to be made to disappear in certain regimes specifically, right?
You're also nodding in Bangalore.
Yeah, you know, it's a protection almost. But however, I do agree that I think there's almost, and we talk about it in the activist spaces where you're defanged. Right? So the moment you're acceptable to these spaces, you're acceptable because you've lost a specific radicalization of your movement. You are even representing people who you should not be representing. You know, this voice for the voiceless thing that people say. It's not that they're voiceless. They've just not been allowed to come.
Right.
You know? And so why even speaking on their behalf, you know? Yes, exactly. And so I agree to Rachel's point that that money should be invested in allowing people to have, you know, movements and sort of like meeting for solidarity within their local context or regional context, and forums such as this, more than say a CSW. But yes, there is the benefit of CSW in a couple of different things here and there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe Vanessa, just coming to the question, if it's not okay. I would say that even gender issues and women issues, it's also good for us to appreciate history, that there had to be a lot of push for there to be a standalone UN body that is UN Women. So for that, we appreciate that there was a lot of struggle from within to ensure that there is that, and that is something to be appreciated. Whenever I see these spaces of influence, I think, you know, we are always saying women should be in tables of decisions where decisions are being made.
Right.
If the table is in New York, let's have women in all their shades and coats of many colors. If decisions are being made in Ethiopia or in Bangalore, let them be in, you know, in where the decisions are being made. Remember, it's at that CSW where we have the world media,
Right.
the big media, and they set the agenda.
They do.
I remember in 2019, I was supported by UNDP to attend the UN General Assembly. And if you all remember, there's this young lady from her name, she does environment work. Greta.
Okay.
The one, and she was advocating for striking Fridays and what. So her arrival at the UN General Assembly, she came by water. Like she said about pollution, you can't use aeroplanes. So the whole world, the whole media focused on her and her quote unquote dramatic entry because she came with a boat. So what did that do? Not only did the media spotlight focus on her as an individual, but also her politics, where she's really big on climate issues and climate change. So what am I saying? In my view, sometimes we can really focus on reinventing the wheel, and we might miss the gains because we might miss the gains that we already have. So in my view, I would say that if that is a space that has been seen to be important, if that is a space that is media worthy, if that's where the whole world is like an ecosystem of opportunities, of media engagement, of meeting those big donors, open the space. When you open the space, remove the barriers that way, because it's not an issue of either or. They can meet us in New York and help us, but they can also come to Nairobi and give her organization money to educate her friends about what was done. So I see it as an opportunity of opening up the space.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Dina, can I pick on you to say something because we haven't heard your voice in a while?
I'm so glad you missed me. But I feel like I need to also do a time check. So I'm going to talk a little bit logistics. I know we started late. We started at 3:56 our time. How are you all doing on time? How much do we want to discuss more?
We don't have too long. I was just going to take 2 comments on your end and then dive quickly into the dreaming of what we would like CSW. Like, what's our dream for CSW to make it more accessible to us, more relevant to our work? Yes, I want to dive into the dreaming. So
I'm just going to ask if there are any comments. Do you all have any comments for whatever was discussed so far?
I'd just say one thing here. I agree with Rachel totally. I have been to 2 CSWs, and unless if you have some idea of getting access to the world media, which is very good, meeting other organizations that are doing similar work and, exchanging strategies helps to a certain extent. But actually spending so much money and going there, and then when you come back to a reality which is totally different. And when you prepare even memoranda for the UN, you use a certain kind of a language. You're not allowed to use anything which sounds like you're telling something to the government. So it really is very limited. But networking and media support, those are the only two things. So I think we should really think who will go and what we will do. That's all.
Right.
I think to also add to that, the media also.
Okay. Thank you. That's a very good point, Shapu. Thank you. We didn't catch that. Please say it again.
No, I was just saying
you said
I was also just saying that I was just saying that I strongly agree with what's being said, but to also add another point that the media also supports very specific agenda points, even if you are in those spaces. It is very possible that I am there, but people don't want to listen to what I'm saying, or they don't agree with my agenda or my politics, which means even though I have spent all this money and I have gone there, there is a very high probability that I don't have a lot to bring back with me. And the second thing I want to add was also just, I think in spaces like this, the impact and the take back that you have is very incremental. I think you have to go there year on year and to build that relationship with people from around the world to actually have that impact back on your organization in your country. I think if you go there once, you're also an outsider in some sense, and you still have to find your friends and build your coalition and build your identity there for it to translate back to actual benefit for your organization back home. And I think it's very difficult for us to go there year on year, but it's very difficult for us to go even once with all the challenges.
Okay, thank you for that. So now we're at our dreaming session, and I have some questions. And we'll share the dreaming board later. We're, sharing our collective visions. But what is it that you would like to see that would facilitate us getting there and participating? Because there was also a point made that just because you get to CSW doesn't mean you actually get into the main plenary and get to speak, say what you have to say. So it's not just getting the visa and getting to New York, it's also getting to CSW and getting to the main plenary. So what can make that more accessible to us? What is our dream for that? I'll start by saying I think they should move CSW.
I think CSW should be country-wise.
Yeah, I agree.
Oh, so you're agreeing with Rachel, like we should all have, an Indian CSW, a Kenyan CSW?
Of course, especially because I think we have much stronger feminist movements and a lot more feminist movements in some other countries where we would really benefit from doing this.
Yes.
Yeah.
What would that take to have a CSW in individual countries? Because then the budget shoots up.
No. The money rotates amongst the women.
CSW should disassociate from UN.
Okay, that's a very big. So maybe Shamul and Rachel, I think you guys should be friends. You think the same?
My suggestion also would be, if there is also an issue to do with like the UN language, how to negotiate for things, or how to do the language of getting to those places. Maybe there should also be an issue of awareness, like so that you know that this is how things work at CSW, this is how to lobby, more or less, like the people who are marginalized to be educated. Because I also think even engaging with media is also a style and an ability to know how to agenda set.
You need media training.
But also you can't say that the media in CSW does not pick your issue as an agenda. It's up to you to make. Okay, I'm not blaming, but I'm just saying it takes also some sort of skill and effort to make the media to see your issue as an agenda. Because even at CSW and those UN meetings, I've always seen like maybe the climate people will just maybe wear green be dramatic around it so that the media can also capture them. So I also see a training on people who are ordinarily marginalized, being empowered agenda set for themselves, because the media is also, the media, they are also profiteers. So I'm also imagining what they are picking is issues of invisible people. What do you agenda set? When I was at the UN General Assembly, I realized that there are meetings within meetings. Like even after now you've gone for the meeting in the boardroom, there's like a working lunch, a quick meeting, let's meet at 11 p.m. Oh, there was so much meetings within meetings. And I realized that if with that understanding and a lot of awareness, then we can also decide where to go. Like the last time I was in a meeting, an international meeting, the ladies we were with, they are quite well exposed. We just met in a breakfast thing. Like they said, so this is the session. So we started circling the places to attend, and there was also a strategy not to be in the same room. So you go for the UN CSW about environment. The other one is UN CSW about maybe global politics. And then that way you sort of influence most cases. But you see, it will also take a lot of knowledge and a lot of sensitization for us to know those tactics, but for us to know how to agenda set for ourselves.
Okay. Bangalore, someone want to add something?
Yes. So ಅಂದ್ರೆ ತುಂಬಾ ಆರ್ಗನೈಸೇಷನ್ ಆಲ್ರೆಡಿ ವರ್ಕ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದಾರೆ ಬೇರೆ ಬೇರೆ ಸಂಘಟನೆ. ಬಟ್ CSW ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಧ್ವನಿ ಎತ್ತಿದ್ರೆ, ಅರ್ಧ ಮಾಡಿಸಿದ್ರೆ ಆಲ್ಮೋಸ್ಟ್ ತುಂಬಾ ಜನ ಅವ್ರು ಮಾಡೋ ಕೆಲಸದಲ್ಲಿ ಇದೊಂದು ಪಾರ್ಟ್ ಅಂತ ತಗೊಂಡು ಹೋಗ್ಬೋದು. ಸೊ ಒಳ್ಳೆ ವಿಚಾರಕ್ಕೆ ಒಳ್ಳೆ ಸಂಘಟನೆಗಳು ಕೂಡ ತುಂಬಾ ಸಪೋರ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ ಆಲ್ಮೋಸ್ಟ್. ಸೊ CSW ಬಗ್ಗೆ ವಿವರವಾಗಿ ಹೇಗೆ ಕೆಲಸ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದಾರೆ, ಏನ್ ನಡೀತಾ ಇದೆ ಅನ್ನೋದು ಒಂದು ನಾವು ಜಾಗೃತಿ ಮೂಡಿಸ್ಬೇಕಾಗತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ನಾವು ಅಡ್ವೊಕೇಸಿ ಯಾವಾಗ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವೋ ಅವಾಗ ಜನಕ್ಕೆ ಅರ್ಥ ಆಗತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ಮೇನ್ ಆಕ್ಟಿವಿಸ್ಟ್ಗೆ ಗೊತ್ತಾಗೋದಲ್ಲ, ಒಳಗಡೆ ಇರೋ ಗುಂಪುಗಳಿಗೆ ಗೊತ್ತಾಗ್ಬೇಕು. ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ಏನ್ ನೀಡ್ ಇದೆ, ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ಏನ್ ನಡೀತಾ ಇದೆ, ಯಾವ ರೀತಿಯ ಸಪೋರ್ಟ್ ಬೇಕು, ಇದನ್ನ ಹೇಗೆ ಮುಂದೆ ತಗೊಂಡು ಹೋಗ್ಬಾರ್ದು ಅನ್ನೋದು ಕೆಳಗಡೆಯಿಂದ ತಗೊಂಡ್ ಬಂದ್ರೆ ಇರೋ ಆರ್ಗನೈಸೇಷನ್, ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಇದಕ್ಕೆ ದುಡ್ಡೇ ಬೇಕಾಗಿಲ್ಲ, ಅಮೌಂಟೇ ಬೇಕಂತ ಏನಿಲ್ಲ, ವಿಚಾರಗಳನ್ನ ಮುಂದೆ ತಗೊಂಡು ಒಳ್ಳೆ ವಿಚಾರ ಇದ್ರೆ 100% ಯಾರಾದ್ರೂ ಸಪೋರ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡೇ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ. ಸೊ ಮುಖ್ಯವಾಗಿ ಇರೋ ಸಂಘಟನೆಗಳು ಯಾವ್ದಿದೆ, ಇರೋ ಮಹಿಳಾ ಗುಂಪುಗಳು ಯಾವ್ದಿದೆ, ಇರೋ ಡಿಸಬಿಲಿಟಿ ಆರ್ಗನೈಸೇಷನ್ ಅಂಡ್ ಏರಿಯಾ ವೈಸ್ ಏನ್ ಸಂಘಟನೆಗಳು, LGBTQI ಸಂಘಟನೆಗಳಿದೆ. ಸೊ ಇದನ್ನ CSW ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ವಿಸ್ತಾರವಾಗಿ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿರುತ್ತಂತ ನಮ್ದೊಂದು ಅನಿಸಿಕೆ. ನೆಟ್ವರ್ಕಿಂಗ್ ಬಿಲ್ಡ್ ಅನ್ನೋದು ತುಂಬಾ ಮುಖ್ಯ, ಬಟ್ ಹೇಳೋದು ಈಸಿ. ಅದನ್ನ ರೆಸ್ಪಾನ್ಸಿಬಿಲಿಟಿ ಪರ್ಸನ್ ಆಗಿ ನಾನು ಇವತ್ತು ಬಂದಿದ್ದೀನಿ, ನಾನು ಮಾತಾಡಿದ್ದೀನಿ, ಗೋ ಬ್ಯಾಕ್ ಅಂಡ್ ನನ್ನ ಆರ್ಗನೈಸೇಷನ್ಗೆ ನಾನು ಇವತ್ತು ಏನ್ ನಡೆದಿದೆ, ಬೇರೆ ದೇಶದಲ್ಲಿ ಏನ್ ನಡೀತಾ ಇದೆ, ನಮ್ಮ ದೇಶದಲ್ಲಿ ಏನ್ ನಡೀತಾ ಇದೆ, ನಮ್ಮ ಸ್ಥಿತಿಗತಿ ಹೇಗಿದೆ. ಸೊ ನನ್ಗೆ ಸೆಕ್ಸ್ ವರ್ಕರ್ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಅಷ್ಟು ಗೊತ್ತಿಲ್ಲ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ನಾನು ಕಲ್ದಿದ್ದೀನಿ, ನಾನು ಹೇಳಿದ್ದೀನಿ. ಸೊ ಸ್ತ್ರೀವಾದ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ನಾನು ಮಾತಾಡೋಕ್ ಹೋಗ್ತಾ ಇದೀವಿ, ಏನ್ ಮಾತಾಡಿದೀವಿ, ಇದನ್ನ ನಾನು ರಿಟರ್ನ್ ಹೋಗಿ ನನ್ನ ಆರ್ಗನೈಸೇಷನ್ಗೆ, ನನ್ನ ಇರೋ ಜನಗಳಿಗೆ ಹೇಳುವಾಗ ಅದ್ರಲ್ಲಿ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಜನ ಆದ್ರೂ ಆ ವಿಚಾರಗಳನ್ನ ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ಅರ್ಥ ಆಗತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ರೆಸ್ಪಾನ್ಸಿಬಿಲಿಟಿ, ನಮ್ ರೆಸ್ಪಾನ್ಸಿಬಿಲಿಟಿ ಕೂಡ ತುಂಬಾ ಮುಖ್ಯ ಆಗಿರುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ಎಲ್ಲಿ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರು ಆರ್ಗನೈಸೇಷನ್, ನೀವು ನಿಮ್ ದೇಶದಲ್ಲಿ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರು ಆರ್ಗನೈಸೇಷನ್, ನಾವು ದೇಶದಲ್ಲಿ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರು ಆರ್ಗನೈಸೇಷನ್, ಬಟ್ ವಿಚಾರ ಮುಕ್ತವಾಗಿ ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ರೀಚ್ ಆಗ್ಬೇಕು ಅನ್ನೋದೇ ತುಂಬಾ ಉದ್ದೇಶ ಇರ್ಬೇಕು. ಅದನ್ನ ರೀಚ್ ಆದ್ರೆ ನಮ್ಮ ದೇಶದಲ್ಲಿ 100% ಎಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ಸಮಾನವಾದ ಹಕ್ಕು, ಶ್ರೀವಾದ ಹಕ್ಕುನ ಇನ್ನೂ ನಾವು ಪೂರ್ಣವಾಗಿ ಗೊಳಿಸಬಹುದು ಅನ್ನೋದು ಒಂದು ಚಿನ್ನದು ನಂದು ರಿಕ್ವೆಸ್ಟ್. ಥ್ಯಾಂಕ್ ಯು.
Thank you, Kiran. Shapo, maybe you can translate. We didn't get any of that.
I was under the impression the translation was happening. Yeah. Sorry.
No, it's not. It's not. I have my ear thing in and I can't hear anything.
Kiran says that CSW, actually the information is very less. Everybody, not only the organizations, but the constituency which they work for, they should also understand this process. Only when they understand, the demands also will rise from that lesson. And then he says it's not only the leadership, but also the members. Everybody should know about it to use the whole process of CSW properly. And then it says also organizations of different kinds. People may be working on different kinds. And if your work is genuine, somebody will support. Like the support will not be so difficult to reach your demands right up to the UN. So that's
Okay.
what Kiran thinks. And Kiran did a-
Okay.
I think for me, as part of recommendation and continue with this conversation, this maybe will be a challenge to ARID, which they have done it well, and congratulations, is to ensure like more of the members within the local countries are resourced. I know ARID is not a funder, but you resource the local grassroots organizations so that we are able to have our mini CSW over and follow up, also holding our leaders into account. So ARID would request or suggest that to keep thriving feminist movements is you support them locally and ensure they lead their own discussion so that next time when you meet with the Bangalore team, we're able to report from our discussion, this is where we have reached and this is the kind of pressure we have pushed from our own local country. And I hope the bosses of ARID are here to listen to us.
The bosses can't hear, but I actually, but we
Sorry?
hear you, thank you.
Yes, please, yes. The way the government,
This is a great point.
yes.
Yeah, take it forward.
It's interesting to me how there's a lot of similarity in our experiences when we're traveling, in our visa application experiences, when we get there, our experience on the ground in New York, and even what we're dreaming of. There's a lot of overlap, like you're asking for more training, you're asking for more on-ground reach to tell people that CSW is happening, this is why it's great for you. So there seems to be a lot of overlap, which then tells me I don't like to walk around the world thinking I'm special. It then, because if Kenyans are having this issue and in Bangalore you're having this issue, then that means in other parts of India, maybe in Pakistan, other parts of Africa, it's a universal issue. So if CSW is really intended for us to attend, then they need to make more of an effort for us to have access. Whether it's giving us devices and money for data so that we can access it virtually from where we are, or maybe they travel to where we are because they are fewer and they have fewer issues with travel and they can afford accommodation where we are. But some out of the box thinking needs to happen.
If I could just come in a quick one, yeah? So when it comes to people who are marginalized, people who are often left in conversations, policies or laws are very protectionalist. And this, well, maybe protectionalist is not the right word. Let's say, for example, in a high school board right now in Kenya, they are very specific that if there's a high school here, not more than 2/3 should be men or women. They also prescribe that there must be a representative of the community and a representative of disabled people.
Right.
You see, they have already given us the template. So the organizers of CSW, for example, if we are saying that people from the global south are missing, it also means the voices of the people there. So what if they come up with a compliance list and say, maybe the CSW, we are expecting 5,000 people. It is incumbent upon them to say that 2,000 should come from the global south. Maybe they can go as much as saying, we're expecting that we'll have maybe 1,100 disabled people, 1,000 transgender people, and other unique identities. Because I feel like the more it's left open, the more it's not a compliance issue.
Right.
And therefore people will still always out of the room. But I've seen even in meetings, there's always, every time, there's always a way of protection. Like, for example, if I'm planning my meeting, if I'm mobilizing people, I usually, let's say, Noni is my mobilizer. I tell her, you and 9 others. See, that makes them 10.
Yeah.
Just make sure that half of them are women.
Okay.
So you do what the magic you can, but come with 4 women, 5 men. So I'm seeing situations where we have to start very deliberate efforts, like saying, half of this room, who's not in the room, people in the global south. So then if we say that, then we can start in the issue.
And maybe that's something they need to hear from us, because we live in more diverse environments than they do. I mean, Kenya alone has 42 tribes. Even if you don't look at, even if you don't look too far, that is something we always have to make sure we are complying to, is that you have tribal representation, you have diversity. I'm sure it's the same thing in India. You have so many ethnic backgrounds and religions, and now we've talked about, Dalits and all that. So it's not so removed for us in our planning. So maybe the global north needs to look to us for wisdom here, because they're quite they're white in general, right? And they have an issue with white men always speaking, right? Male pale stale, right? Like that's the hashtag that goes along with a lot of UN things, is male pale stale. So maybe they need to look to us for wisdom. Okay, now we need to wrap up. Noni, last comment, then we go.
I was just going to say, I think what we're all questioning in this room is choices. Exclusion is a choice.
Right.
Inclusion is also a choice. Exclusion is an investment. It's an investment for you to hold it in New York when you also have headquarters in different parts of the world.
That's a good point.
That is an investment choice. Inclusion is also an investment choice. You can choose to invest in inclusion. And so I think what we're all saying is, why isn't the silence of all of these people loud enough for them? Because it is for us. We see, we hear it. Right. So why do they keep making choices for exclusion, investments for exclusion? And we keep having the same conversations over and over every year. And it's a distraction. We've taken time off our work today to come and discuss what was discussed last year. Right. Which was demands for them to actually make sure it's inclusive.
And actually repeated in different UN contexts, because like earlier we were talking about COP, which is the climate change UN event. And it happens every year. And even at COP, this conversation comes up, is like last year it was in Egypt, African women couldn't attend, even though it was in Africa, again, with the visa issues and, you know, where do you stay? How much money do you have? So repeatedly, like you're saying, in all these UN spaces, the same conversation is coming up. So yes, they should listen. They must. So sign up to AWID. Is what I saw in the notes. I'm not sure how. Does somebody know how?
I'm a member.
How did you sign up?
Online. Just go and then go to the event page and then sign to be a member.
Hi, Nairobi. I'm back. Yeah, I was actually going to ask if this room wants to stay in touch. You know, Nairobi to Bangalore, I think the discussion, I'm sorry, I'm dehydrated. The discussion has been super rich. If there's a need to have a conversation between each other about CSW or access in another way, maybe we could facilitate that. We'll do that offline, but we just wanted to put this thought in your head. The Bangalore folks can actually go out and sign up to AVID. We would love for you to do that. On our end, I just want to say this has been such a great conversation, despite all the tech glitches. Like, it's been such a rich conversation. Thank you much.
It has. It's been great to meet you all and to hear your insights. And thank you for sharing your stories. And to you too, the Nairobi panel, thank you for sharing your stories and your experiences and being generous with what you've learned. Thank you so, so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye.
That was great. And thanks, Ivy, for organizing.
I just love to go, Bangalore is very nice. I love it. Green.
Love to hear that.
It's easy to walk in.
You're being welcomed back there. Like, come back.
New Delhi.
Delhi is a bit, it's aggressive.
With a lot of
New Delhi is Nairobi.
And Nairobi now.
Chaos. Yes. But now imagine chaos with a population that a country that has 1 billion people. Chaos.
My eyebrows still on. Mama, did it come out? It's still there.
1 billion people.
Can you see if my eyebrows still there?
Yes.
Okay.
No, so we bumped into each other and I was like,
Some back from AVID.
Have to return the your things.
Hey,
If you could just put it on the table.
No, once again, yeah, I know. You need any help? You can come.
I will come.